Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. The Brawley City Council and Successor Agency to the Brawley Community Redevelopment Agency, our regular meeting this evening here on February 5th, 6 p.m. Could we get the roll call, please?
The minutes will reflect all council members present.
Very good. And before I ask everyone to stand for the invocation from Pastor Tom Charlton, I'd ask that, I'll actually want to dedicate this meeting to Susan Manger, our Assistant Library Director, in her memory, and please keep her in our prayers. So, Pastor.
Council, Mayor, the studious audience tonight, I'm glad that you're here to be home watching the State of the Union. But this is really what it amounts to, every local union having its place in America. So let's pray for the United States as we pray for our own council meeting. Precious Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for your goodness, for your glory, for your guidance, and that is what we're asking for tonight. We're asking, Lord, for whatever comes up before the council tonight, Lord, that it will be civil, and that it will be friendly, and that it can be worked out. We pray, Lord, that you would guide the meeting. We pray for your input to each and every person that participates, and we pray for your blessing upon this group and upon the United States, and we ask it in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. And Marjo, if you could lead us in the pledge.
I would be honored. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Marjo, and thank you, Pastor. We'll begin with our first item on the agenda, which will be the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Very good. We'll move on to item number 2, which will be our public appearances and comments. In this section, we are not to exceed 4 minutes. This is a time for the public to address the council on any items that are not appearing on the agenda, and that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you when you come to the microphone, so please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal attacks on individuals or make comments that are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. And I would ask the public, before we do that, I'd like to go to the first item, A, under public comments, and that'll be our presentation. If we can start with that by Deborah McGarry, our Public Affairs Manager for SoCal Gas, and we have a presentation on balanced energy. So, Ms. McGarry.
Now, is that limited to 4 minutes also?
It is not. We're pretty good about making exceptions there. So.
Okay, I wasn't sure because.
4 minutes and 10 seconds for you.
4
minutes and 10 seconds.
I would have actually have just in my. Don't worry about it. We have. I have the electronic.
Well, Donnie,
Handouts.
how long is the presentation?
Exactly. So there's
Okay.
one here.
Yeah.
for each council member.
Deborah, and approximately how long's your?
Well, I was just going to do the formal one, but I don't have to. I could actually take this down to like approximately the 3 minutes. But I could just touch bases on each one of these slides. It's probably maybe about, it could be almost 10 minutes, it could be less than 7 minutes. I could probably do 1 minute on each slide. There's like 7 slides.
Yeah, and Ms. McGarry, what I'll probably ask is that's fine. We don't want to rush you. So if anything, because we have ample time. Would it be okay with you if there's anyone that wants to come and make a quick public comment? I would like to open that up. And if anyone wants to come back, we can do that. Let's at least pull the room. I don't see anybody rushing up, so I think we're good. Proceed.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I didn't know if the mic was on or not. You have to excuse me again. I'm congested. I can't hear. So again, my name's Deborah McGarry. I'm the Public Affairs Manager with Southern California Gas Company. I'm here today to talk about the balanced energy approach that we're providing information then to our cities. And we've been doing this, not full presentation, but just a public comment to each of our council members throughout our service territory. So I passed out just a hard copy, which is the same thing that you're seeing on the screen, which also was in your agenda packet. So, as most of you know, California is a leader in regards to climate change, specifically greenhouse gas emissions and renewable energy. It is important, it has been an important debate that's happening right now. It's actually happening on a federal level, it's not just on the state level. And the goal is to basically achieve a 50% reduction in regards to energy by 2030. So the choices we make every single day with regards to energy policies are now affecting our customers, you know, in California and all of our businesses. In 2018, there was a piece of legislation that was being considered that would have eliminated all natural gas from people's homes and their businesses. So this would mean that all of your gas appliances would have to be removed. And this was actually going to be set in place, that it would have to be accomplished starting in the next five years. So basically, all new buildings would have to have no natural gas, they would all be electric. So this legislation, which was AB 3232, did not pass. However, we're going to continue to see additional types of legislation moving forward. And of course, this is also to address the climate change, and we understand that. Page down, I'm just going to do this one, how about that? Sorry.
It's not advancing.
I think you should be able to scroll downward.
Page down. There we go. It's a little off.
Just keep scrolling, I think. No?
Yeah.
Oh, very
There you
good.
go.
Thank you, Alma. Appreciate that. There you go. So the audience can see. California has met its 2020 goals with regards to greenhouse gas emissions and reductions. We've set our sights, basically ambitious goals by 2030, which, like I said earlier, to be 50%. Some policymakers are pushing for electrification, converting all of our home, businesses, and et cetera, to electricity. The rationale behind this is basically, you know, solar, wind, and hydro is all renewable, so it's good. So let's use it for everything. But it's simple to say that that's not actually actual. It's not real factual that you could actually do that and still be able to use the amount of energy. Keep in mind, all of us have one or two phones now. We have a computer. We have large screen televisions. We're using a lot more energy and electricity than we ever have. And so, of course, with all this, there's a large demand on energy.
And plus, like on a tortilla, you can't get that little burnt on it without gas, you know?
No,
what I'm saying?
I'll tell you just real quick, I know it's a little off of the topic, but the fact of the matter is that when I shared this information about AB 3232 to folks within the hotel industry, they were basically comment was, the chefs are gonna go crazy, you know, because this is what you use to cook with. I mean, I can't imagine what you like. So with that being said, when you go into the whole thing with regards to choice, the cost is actually going to increase, you know, with regards to what you have to do. So we want to keep in mind that we need options, you know, for the overwhelming majority of our public. We don't want to force to switch out of our appliances and go to all electric equipment. And this is the survey that we did with the local Building Industry Association. It says less than 10% of all people would choose all electric homes. Okay, so less than 10%. 80% of voters oppose and prohibiting the use of natural gas appliances, especially when it comes to cooking or heating. Okay, so they oppose that. So we have 80% of people that want to use natural gas. And then 2/3 of Californians oppose eliminating the use of natural gas altogether. And so they want to have a say with what's being used in their homes and their businesses. Primarily, most people that I talk to say, gosh, my gas bill happens to be the least expensive bill that I have, especially when it comes to any type of utility. So here's an additional burden for folks to take into consideration. When we did this, not us, but when the industry did this study, okay, so how expensive would it actually be if you were to go ahead and switch out your equipment? So they looked at an average house, how much would that actually be? Because you'd have to switch out the wiring, you'd have to switch out the appliances, you'd have to retrofit the house, especially if you have natural gas furnaces and heaters, and you think of all the appliances when you go home, take a look and see how many actually run on natural gas. It was an estimated average of about $7,200 that people would have to spend to retrofit that. So where are we going to get the money to actually go ahead and do that? Not to mention, you know, when you take in consideration the cost of what you pay for your electricity every summer Now imagine you're having to use all electricity for your winter months as well. So I mean, there is definitely a cost that actually would go onto that. So let me ask you, if we could go ahead and meet your environmental goals for less money and be able to do it without any type of distribution or disruption, would you want that to happen? So one of the things that we're actually looking at, and actually we're already using this, is renewable natural gas. It gives us a way to do just that. Natural gas is a methane, it's an organic material. It occurs when organic items start to decompose. In other words, it comes from our farms, our kitchens, our waste. We produce methane every single day.
Literally.
A lot, literally.
Literally, yes.
And so if you think about this, where it's coming from, our landfills, our waste, wastewater, our dairies, our farms, that real renewable natural gas and biogas can be used to actually heat our homes and to replace the natural gas that we're using in our system. And this is important to point out. It says, because renewable natural gas is created by taking methane emissions that would normally be released into the atmosphere. And when you use biogas from food or green waste, it has a negative carbon intensity value, which means that it's not only does biogas have a zero emission, it actually takes carbon out of the air. So it has a big negative response to that. So, I mean, it kind of just shows you just a little bit. If you were able to go ahead and displace 16% of the natural gas that we take out of the ground and that we have in our pipelines right now and use renewable natural gas, it would have the same effect as if we were to actually electrify all of our buildings throughout California. And if you were to go ahead, and here's another little factoid, if you were to go ahead and use battery backup for everything that natural gas does, it would cost the state of California $3 trillion. So these are different studies by third parties.
I mean, that's essentially what they do in developing countries where, small villages, they'll have a bladder, they have, biosolids.
They're doing it all over Europe right now.
So it's,
Follow me on Twitter and you'll see it, because I tweet all this stuff out whenever we get the
I'm
updates.
going to follow you on Twitter.
So we've got just a couple more slides real quick. So the point is that you shouldn't have to choose between what you believe is valuable, or value, and what your budget can withstand. With natural gas, you don't have to. You could actually use biogas. And we feel that if we continue to go down this path and inject biogas into our system, then we're going to be able to go ahead and get California to exactly where they want to go. And again, this isn't to push against and saying that we don't want electrification or electric, but we don't want it to be all electric. I mean, putting all your eggs in one basket may not be the wisest thing in the world to do. So this is how you could help. First of all, pay attention to the issues and learn more. Use your public affairs manager, such as me, as a team or as a resource if you need information. Consider a full and real implementations to your community members. Okay, so how would this affect your community? And then, of course, stand up for local control. And I know a lot of you are always continuously focusing on that. And don't let the state mandate your building codes and what's happening within your city. So there's a little bit of information. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for your time.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any questions? I appreciate that. I think that was
Thank you.
well presented, and we'll move on to our next item that's under public appearances, which is item B, proclamation declaring the week of February 7th through the 14th, 2019 as National Marriage Week, presented by Juan Campos, IVROP, Educational Services and Continuing Ed Coordinator. And Mr. Campos, if you come
Mr.
this
Mayor.
way, and
Before it goes up, Mr. Mayor.
That way they can
With respect to that last presentation, I mean,
Yeah.
in the housing
Video.
industry, even locally, I mean, natural gas appliances are really what people ask for, not electric. So I would think that most people would want to continue in that fashion. Anyway, just a side comment.
well, yeah, and it's a big issue. The other, my thought on that was also just how many critical jobs throughout the country are actually tied to the energy industry as well as natural gas. So it's something that we have an abundance of, I believe. So, Mr. Campos, if you have a
I have a few words. Again, it's Juan Campos, Education Coordinator for Pearl Valley ROP. Thank you for reading the proclamation and for joining IVROP and hundreds of organizations nationwide in celebrating National Marriage Week. National Marriage Week USA is a collaborative campaign to strengthen marriages. The IVROP Family Development and Stabilization Projects provide support, guidance, and skill development for each member of a familial unit and for the family as a whole. Just again, thank you for your support of IVROP and for your work in promoting healthy marriages and healthy families in the city of Brawley. Also, on behalf of the IVROP Community Foundation, we would like to inform you about our upcoming Dancing with the Stars Gala scheduled for May 3rd, 2019 at the Quishan Resort in Winter Haven. You can visit our IVROP website for ticket information. I think you can also talk to Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
We have an insider, yep.
Yeah.
At our Alma.
Mr. Campos, thank you. And if I could, I'd like to go ahead and read the proclamation into the record. And you can stay right there. Proclamation declaring the week of February 7th through the 14th, 2019 is National Marriage Week, whereas marriage binds couples together in the network of affection, mutual aid, and mutual obligation, commits parents to their children, connects children to a wider network of welcoming kin, and provides ongoing support for the growth of healthy children and a healthy family. And whereas mounting scientific evidence confirms the best environment for children to flourish is with parents in healthy marriages, and whereas healthy marriages protect adults as well as children and mothers as well as fathers. And whereas research indicates that men and women in healthy marriages are physically and emotionally healthier and wealthier, are less likely to attempt or commit suicide, have decreased risk of drug and alcohol use, and are more likely to have better relationships with their children. And whereas physically and emotionally healthy and educated citizens experience less crime, violence, teenage pregnancy, and juvenile delinquency, and whereas research has helped to identify that behaviors and skills necessary for a healthy relationship and establish proven methods of teaching these skills and behaviors, and whereas the City of Brawley acknowledges the importance of a lasting, healthy marriages for the well-being of children, home ownership rates, and future health of the community. Now therefore be it resolved, I, Donald L. Wharton, Mayor of the City of Brawley, do hereby proclaim the week of February 7th through 14th, 2019 as National Marriage Week in the City of Brawley. Thank you, Mr. Campos, and I will present this proclamation to you. That's in a font size I wasn't going to be able to read. Thank you very much.
If you want to make it really official, you have to do it like a proposal. You know, like that.
It's okay. I didn't understand your jokes.
Huh? What?
I said they don't understand your jokes.
Yeah, they do. They get them. They're too polite to laugh.
A proposal.
Yeah.
That's perfect. We'll move on to, we have another presentation. And this presentation will be by Charlotte Teeters, our Executive Director of the Imperial County Film Commission. Charlotte, if you don't mind.
Good evening, Charlotte Teeters with the Imperial County Film Commission. I too am stuffy, so I apologize. I'll make it very brief. There's just a couple of things. I'm going to give you an update on how we've been doing so far this fiscal year with filming in our county, and then invite you to our annual dinner, which is going to be on February 22nd. So let me just give you a little bit of an update. So far, we've tracked 35 projects this fiscal year that have filmed in Imperial County, and that represents just shy of $1.5 million for estimated economic impact for our area. We've had 5 documentaries, 4 feature independent films, 1 reality TV, 10 music videos, 6 still projects, 3 short films, 3 student films, 2 commercials, and 1 television episode. We've had, excuse me, products such as Japan Airlines, Calvin Klein, Macy's, Neiman Marcus. We've had Nat Geo and Netflix, and we had an episode of Bosch, the Amazon show, shoot here. And then we also had Dierks Bentley do his music video for Burning Man. So that's all been shot so far this year. We have quite a few different upcoming projects. One of them's going to be a very large feature that I can't really talk about, but I'll throw it out there just because. And then, again, our event, you should have that flyer, but if you don't, I gave some to Alma. Going to be February 22nd at the Ricochet Event Center. We're going to talk about the history of filming in our area, the past 10 years of, at least that I've been here, and the economic impacts that filming makes to Imperial County, and just celebrate our history in Hollywood. So I hope you guys will consider coming, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Fantastic. Open up any questions, comments?
I'm glad the gala dinner event is finally coming to life there. I know
Yeah.
it had been talked about for a long time. So
We
it's
have
good.
been, so it's our first time doing an annual dinner, so. Again, we just hope you guys will come out and celebrate with us.
And I'm happy to be your new liaison.
I know,
with the
how
Film
exciting is
Commission, so
that?
I'm looking forward to being on the board and to this event also.
Great. We'll look for you there.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
Thank you. For sure. And moving on, I'll just, one more time, any other public comments? Anyone like to come up, address the council? If not, we'll move on to our next item. Our next item is item 3, the consent agenda. Items are approved in one motion. Council members or members of the public may request consent items to be considered separately at a time determined by the mayor. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A motion
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move on to the next item, which will be item 4, regular business. 4A is the mid-year 2018-2019 budget review. Was going to be presented by Rosa Ramirez, our finance director, who is a bit under the weather, so we're going to have Mr. Godinez, our assistant finance director, make this presentation.
Before you present, Mr. Godinez, what do you prefer on your tortillas, like the burn marks or not the burn marks?
For the
Electric? Yeah, that's true, yeah. There you go. That's,
You like them
yeah.
toasted?
Right, right.
Wow.
Gas though, gas, right?
Morgan, there you go.
It's cracking in and out.
Yeah, it's kind of in and out today.
Mayor Morton, council members, tonight we're going to present the mid-year 2018-19 budget review. Provided slides, so we're just going to go one through these at a time. So the purpose of the mid-year budget review is to review significant funds, and more or less is a snapshot of revenues and expenditures compared from actual to projected. For the approved 2018-19 budget, just to kind of give you a brief overview, we have a combined fund balance at $39,179,000. Based what we had on the approved budget, we have revenues set at $45,014,000 and expenditures at $48,551,000. So adding the fund balance plus the revenues minus expenditures equals the ending balance. So that would be our projected based on what we have. Just a couple of notes there at the bottom that are worth note is it better for me not to use this? Or?
It might be.
Might be to speak up. So
Or just, yeah.
You know, look, would it be too much to see if your mic would reach over? I'm not sure. Or would that connect to that? by any
I can just raise my voice, it's easier.
chance? Yeah?
It's a different.
So
It is a different one?
just for other items worth note, on the general fund reserve use of 2018-19, we do have currently, based on the numbers that we have recorded, an operational deficit. Also, that is considering that we have everything up to par and recorded, so that's where we stand right now. The other note is we're gonna have a sewer bond payment in the amount of $133,000 that is also gonna impact that as well too.
If I may clarify, actually, that last entry is the final payment of our Regional Water
Yes,
Quality Control Board settlement. So that's our
Yes.
last payment for
Correct.
the $1 million
That they fined
we
us.
agreed to pay out to the Regional Board.
That was already made, correct?
It was made this fiscal year,
This
July
fiscal
1.
year.
That's highway robbery. State robbers.
So for the 2018-19 year, for the total city as a whole, we have approved budget at $43,044,000 and expenditures at $49,550,000. Based on where we currently stand of the revenues, we've incurred about $15,068,000 of that projected so far. And as far as the expenditures, we're at $15,975,000.
Okay.
This slide is just to give you an overview, comparison to where we were in 2017, ending fiscal 17 to 2018. So in the 2018 year, we were budgeted at $43 million for revenues, $43,044,000, and at this current time, we had incurred 35% of the projected revenues. So for 2018, for the expenditures, we're at $49,550,000 projected. We incurred $15,975,000 of expenses. For the 2018-19 year, the same conceptually, we were at 29% for revenues and 26% for expenditures and what was incurred, respectively.
Question. Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Question. Do you know, as far as the revenues, since the revenues are less for 2018, 2019, what does that reflect? What revenues haven't come in? Do you know if there's a specific area?
Correct. Typically, what we're seeing right now is, in particular, grants, transfers of such sort. We are reporting receivables that we know that are due to us. That's one of the revenue sources that we need to get caught up with, so to speak.
And actually, I think in a future slide, you're going to see that we, in January, are in receipt of several large ticket items in hand as revenues. So when the last 30 days worth of revenues and expenditures are noted, we're going to have a surge on the revenue side because we'll be recognizing some of our payments on grant revenues to be received and reimbursed to the city.
I was going to say that for a later slide,
Yes.
but
All right.
yes,
Okay, thank
towards
you.
the end of the year, we need to incur for what's due back for the 2018 fiscal year.
She stole your thunder a little bit right there, I know.
Sorry
so-
about that.
It's all right, don't worry.
Got ahead us.
Okay, maybe.
So for the general fund, for 2018-19, our approved budget was for $14,962,000. Of that, we've incurred 27% of that, which is $4,002,000.
Next slide.
If you could advance the slide, please.
Apologize for that.
There
you
There you
go.
go. Expenditures, we're projected at $15,110,000, and we've incurred 40% of that, which is $6,057,000.
Okay.
So major revenue sources for the general fund, we have property taxes, sales and use taxes, and utility users tax. For some time, we have not received the vehicle licensing fee tax, but we just keep it included in case. So of that, based from actual to projected, property taxes, we've incurred 58% of that. Sales and use tax, we're at 31%. Utility users tax, we're at 50%.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
As far as the VLP swap, is that anticipated we will receive it, or?
No,
what's-
that is the source of revenue the city has not received for a few years. So,
So has that gone away, pretty much?
I don't know in particular if that's gone away completely.
It's a state thing.
If I may note on a future slide, there is a reference to its receipt in January,
Okay.
and it has not yet been booked. Because this is through December.
Okay, thank you.
So major revenue sources for the general fund for 2017-18. So for property taxes, we're budgeted at $1,964,000. Sales and use tax, $2,239,000. Utility users tax, $1,975,000. Property taxes, we've incurred 55% of that. Sales and use tax, 24%, and utility users tax, 40%.
If you have an opportunity to look at page 85 of the backup, I think this, understanding how distressed the general fund is, when you look at 18-19 versus 17-18, I think there are some very important observations to gather from those two comparisons. And those are that at this exact same time last year, we were at the threshold of 55% with receipt of a certain dollar value. At December of this year, our 2018, we're exceeding those numbers. So there are some positive trends along the way that you can see for property taxes, sales and use taxes, and on the utility user tax front, you'll see that we are exactly at projected, which is pretty unusual as well.
Thank you.
Some notes for the major revenue sources. On the general fund variances, on property tax, on the slide before, we illustrated what we've incurred so far, but just to give some brief descriptions, on property taxes, we've had a slight increase compared to prior fiscal year. Actual payments are allocated December, April, and June. On the sales and use tax, we've had an increase of 27% compared from prior year. And the utilities user tax, there's been an increase in 13% compared also to prior year.
Just as a statement, it appears that we're doing well in that area, but we're not keeping up with expenses. Our expenses are still
Outpace,
increasing
right.
at a higher rate than those are. However, a 27% increase in sales and use tax is quite a large increase.
It is.
So,
Can you go back to the VLF swap again? I'm not understanding. So last year at this time, we had not received the VLF swap yet either.
Correct, because as of December, it's not in hand. It's booked for when received, which is January, and this only accounts for July 1 to December.
Okay. So both January and May, it says in the next slide that those are not accounted for yet.
Right, so they show as a zero, because as of the closeout of the month of December, we've received zero. But the good news is we have funds in hand in January, just as noted with some of our grant reimbursements, which are considerable. We'll see the numbers actually escalate quite significantly in the second half of the year.
So mid-year actual comparisons from 2018 to the 2019 year, we've seen an increase in property taxes of $256. Sales and
Not
use
a lot.
tax, $146,000.
That was
And
146.
utility users tax of $101,000.
That's odd. Just talking about I just find that odd, but I mean, that's just my own personal. Maybe by the end of the year, we'll see there should be a substantial difference, I would
April.
think.
In
April
what?
will receive.
And the property taxes.
Property tax, in April, you'll receive some payments.
With all the new housing.
And it could be that people aren't paying their property taxes too. I mean, that's a possibility also. so.
No, but property taxes haven't
They
necessarily
tend to be-
increased.
They
you know,
tend,
so
they
it's
don't
been
really increase
fairly
much
neutral, yeah.
because of what was it, the way back when? Prop 13.
Yeah, but there's new housing developments, I mean, that should have brought in more
But
property
when-
taxes.
When you look at what property tax is constitutes as a
Yeah.
revenue source versus the others.
Yes.
Mhm.
It's not the
very
the
small.
most significant
Mhm.
portion of the
Very
pie
small.
that produces the revenue side for the city.
It's a very small percentage.
Something to look at, I guess, maybe.
Some preventive measures for budget overruns. For department heads, reviewing department-specific budgets, prepare budget adjustments to adjust for account overages, budget adjustments not to exceed overall budget unless it's approved by city council. The finance department reviews purchase order requests, review revenue and expenditure reports, request department to prepare budget adjustments if necessary. Budget adjustments do not exceed the overall approved budget unless it's approved by city council. On finance department, I just wanted to add a note that we did not put in there that we do follow the purchasing policy in hand, and we use it as obviously one of our internal control mechanisms to detect or identify fraud or anything that might potentially happen.
Mr. Godinez,
Yep.
it's a previous slide, but with respect to the utility user tax that was collected, is that probably attributable to the increase in water rates, and is that?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are projected to have, if I recall correctly, an increase coming up in March.
March 1st is our
1st also.
last increase
this-
as part of the approved rate study.
But that's, it's about $100,000 difference, so that's,
Yeah.
thank you.
For the gas tax fund, based on the approved budget, our revenue was set at $1,052,000. We've incurred 37%, which is $3,870,000. For expenditures, we were projected at $1,869,000. We've incurred 13% of that at $240,000. Fund 215, our Measure D. Our approved budget was, revenues were set at $875,000. We incurred 22% at $195,000. Expenditures were approved at $943,000. And we've incurred 10% of that at $89,000. For our water fund, our approved budget was, for revenues were set at $6,931,000. We've incurred 50% of that at $3,481,000. Expenditures were set at $9,008,000, and we've incurred 15% of that at $1,154,000. The wastewater fund, Fund 11, our approved budget for revenues were set at $5,667,000, incurred 49% of that, $2,814,000. Expenditures were approved at $4,934,000. We've incurred 17% of that at $732,000. Water and wastewater fund, additional information. Water fund loan from wastewater fund is at $1.6 million. Payment plan discussed during the budget discussion and anticipated annual at year end in the amount of $102,307. Residential and commercial utility rates, increase schedule at annual March 1st. On those in particular and specifically, water rates are going to increase 9%. Sewer is going to increase 3%. Fund 521 for solid waste. Approved revenue was at $1,456,000. We've incurred 49% of that, $715,000. Our approved expenditures were at $1,320,000. We've incurred 40% of that at $521,000. Our airport fund, approved revenue was $126,000. We've incurred 46% at $57,000. Our approved expenditures were $91,553. We've incurred 14% at $4,000.
It's insurance.
Our outlook for the rest of the year for 2018-19 adopted budget for our operational deficit, we're at 148,000 expenditure over revenues, based as stated in earlier slides. We do have our last sewer bond payment that we discussed before. And also we have a preliminary year-end close for 2017-18, $392,724. Estimated general fund reserve use at the budget adoption. Currently, the water fund is illustrating a operational gain, as well as the wastewater fund.
If I may offer a couple of closing comments, I want to thank Tony for pinch hitting for Rosa. Rosa let us know about 3:30 today that she would be unable to join us due to her feeling really sick today. We did have an opportunity as an executive team to review content yesterday with Rosa and actually do a lot of discussion amongst exec team on some of the trends that were observed in the numbers. So again, want to reiterate that the $133,000 is a regional board settlement payment, not a bond payment. It is a regional board settlement payment, and it's our last and final payment. So really, that operational deficit in the general fund is the $148,000 figure, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to that discussion as the budget process kicks off. Today is actually step one in the 1920 budget process. The first thing we do is check our temperature for how we're doing at mid-year. Also want to note, as we were trying to grapple with the expenditures being under the 50% level, some of why that is because we have some very large projects that we have awarded, and we're going to be writing lots of checks that are part of council authorization for the roadway improvement projects that are underway. So you're going to see a real push on the expenditure side of the equation in the second half of the fiscal year. In general, as we discussed, whether there were concerns about the direction or trends that are evident, we're actually performing, I think, decently compared to projections. As you may recall, there was lengthy debate among council as to how we should address revenue increases and what were some modest estimations. And I think we're doing well in a number of areas, which means maybe it bodes well for ending the year on target, June 30, 2019.
Very good, and if I could, thank you for some closing thoughts there. I want to open it up to council, and as I do, if you don't mind, I'll just start with this. Mr. Godinez, what would, whether it's 1, 2, 3, kind of top 1, 2, or 3 drivers on the expenditure side, being that over the recent years we've been challenged with having even increased revenues keep up with that. What are, just for the public's benefit as well as obviously ours, what are the big drivers there?
Specifically, we haven't done an analysis to actually specify which are the driving forces. In the budget, one thing that we do take in consideration that is kind of taken for granted are bond payments, where we do project for them, but however, these bond payments are their expense, but then reclassified onto our balance sheet. So it seems like there's a lot of money going out, but when there's a reclassification, the hit isn't as large. But in terms of actual specific expenditures,
we would actually need to do an analysis to see specifically.
In general, 75 to 80% of our budget is devoted to employee
Labor.
compensation.
Sure.
And then the larger ticket items outside of employee compensation are capital projects. So those projects that go through the grinder in the budget approval process and then come to you because they're in excess of $15,000. So we're going to see those, the check registers begin to reflect those awarded contracts. Some of which are underway or very soon we'll be seeing ground broken on North 8th Street and our LTA Phase 11 projects.
I mean, I think it's I think common knowledge throughout at least the state of California, pension liability, obviously cost of doing business with employees, and that's not reflective, again, of our employees. We understand just the rising costs. I know Affordable Care Act a few years back, we had some unanticipated, relatively quick increases for basically doing the same thing. That's what I was really gunning for. So hopefully as we get into the budget process, I think it's going to be important for council to understand those things. Not only can we communicate that to the public, but also it helps us to understand going into budget when we're making decisions, what are the things that bottom line affect that bottom line. So, Council, I'd like to.
I have a couple of questions. I think it's the second actual slide, or maybe the third actual slide, fiscal year 2018-19 total city budget. It says there's a projected or approved revenue of 43 million and approved expenditures of 49 million. That's the entire year?
And all funds combined, so water, wastewater, streets, everything combined and general fund.
So with a $6.5 million difference between expected revenues and expected expenditures.
I would look at that just kind of from a framework point of view as likely to have $6 million in capital projects in total. Because, you're trying to match your operational revenues as just a general rule of thumb. Operational revenues, operational expenses, you want them to match. Anything that is in excess either gets devoted to a capital project or becomes a fund balance. And you'll see at the end of your year that carryover amount is reflected because you're not spending everything that comes in the door. And these numbers, when you look at your budget book on the front page, you'll see they exactly align with the total approved budget for, the sheet that literally shows probably 20 funds total. At the bottom, you'll find the total figure of 43 million and 49, and then the carryovers for each of those funds, which are referenced in parentheses by their fund number.
Okay. Is there ever a year where you wind up with more revenue than expenditure?
Yes, quite frequently. What you find is, in our city's experience, the two most distressed funds that struggle to bring enough revenue in the door to offset the desired service level and the associated expenditures, there are two places. Number one is the general fund, and the general fund is the most flexible. The council gets to decide how you want those dollars to be spent because they have no restrictions on them. Whereas water, sewer, and streets, you can only use them for those types of things. So the general fund, typically that list of wants far exceeds the revenues that we're bringing in the door or the fund balance available to work on special projects. The other place that we experience kind of stress and strain in the city of Brawley is the water fund. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with the city's history and how long it took us to get to metered use. And as our plant, our main water plant begins to age, we're gonna begin to see the needs, the capital needs of the water plant outpace our revenues. Now our list is longer for the wants for the plant and the infrastructure than the funds that are available. And so we don't just spend all the funds that come in the door, we also have obligations in place for maintaining a certain ratio for the loan arrangements, bonds and loans that we have outstanding. So we can't spend every single penny that comes in the door. What we do is bring to council the prioritized list of capital needs, recognizing that we can't do everything because there aren't enough financial resources to do so, but we're gonna, work with council to say, these are the top 3 that must go in order, let's say, to maintain a safe water supply. And next year, we'll start trying to go on the next, work with the next cohort of projects and capital needs at the plant.
Any other questions, comments?
Just, Tony, nice job on
Thank you.
giving us this update. Appreciate it, and I think I can pretty much follow it. I may have some questions later. I would like to see us maybe follow up on the property tax issue that Norma had. Maybe we could take a look at that in April, after we get that revenue. Maybe that you could do a report on that to us when that revenue does come in, and we can kind of see whether that's an abnormal thing or whether that's pretty normal for this year. So just little things like that that I might have questions on later, but I think overall, I understand it. It looks like we're in about as good a shape as we could be at this point in time for some of the struggles that we had obtaining the final budget, and so I think that's great. So that's where we're at.
Mr. Godinez, thank you.
I just, I'm not sure if this is the time to ask, but when we had our budget meeting before, we looked at things that might bring more revenue into the city. And one of the things that we talked about was the cost recovery of the emergency medical services. And I just was wondering if we might be able to get an update on that, where we're at.
Would be happy to kind of give you a brief update right now if you'd like, and then we are anticipating a future item to come before the council. Our fire chief has had the opportunity to both survey neighboring jurisdictions as to how they're operating and conduct a broad net of research. One of the interesting observations, our neighboring jurisdictions are definitely struggling to keep pace with cost recovery. We have learned in jurisdictions where transportation and medical service are not provided by the same entity, Medicare and Medi-Cal will only pay the transportation agency, not the provider of the medical service. So if we roll out cost recovery for EMS, we're only going to get reimbursed from private insurance companies. And so that's going to be something we consider as we look at how to approach this question in the future. We also have spoken internally about the benefits of reaching out to Tausig and Associates. They did our Nexus study for development impact fees. We have requested that they provide us with a quote to conduct a mini study and help us determine from a fire point of view, are there fire-related firefighting calls that we can charge? And it's mostly to help council to see what the menu of options are, because originally we thought, well, if EMS is 85% of the calls, then
But if it's not available to us, then
correct.
certainly. Yeah.
So we'll be coming to you in the future. My hope is that we could get a bona fide party to work with us on a bulletproof approach that will come to the council, and we'll test with you what really is the appetite. Is it firefighting charges? Is it EMS for private and public, recognizing that public will not pay us, but we can recover something from the private pays? How can we structure it?
Okay. Because at this point, we really don't know what kind of revenue we would be looking at. Is that correct?
Well, I
Do
think
we have an idea?
our revenue estimates for budgeting purposes were $250,000.
Okay.
Right. There was one other element that I just recalled. It's false alarms for fire. We we had on the agenda the second reading of the ordinance for burglar alarms. We have a lot of false alarms for fires at commercial locations. We don't charge for them at all.
And maybe
So
we
that
should
may be
after
something
so
to
many
look at.
come
Even if
up.
it's a modest flat fee, it's still a
Yes.
recovery of something in the absence of nothing. So anyway, that's the
Thank you.
latest and greatest on that front. And maybe
Thank
at the
you.
next meeting, we Gordon Gast has been helping us communicate with Tausig and Associates to get a quote, and we'll be coming back to you in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Mr. Godinez, thank you again for pinch hitting. Well done. We'll move on to our next item, which will be item 5, departmental reports, our monthly staff report for January 2019, as prepared by Ms. Bonillas.
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Shirley Benitez, Personnel and Risk Management. On page 92 is the report. Under 3 police officer vacancies, we have 1 conditional offer has been made. So that's after the chief's interview, conditional offers extended at that time. So they're in the psychological eval and physical evaluation process. And we have one close to being prepared to go in front of the chief. So one definitely in the final stages and one almost there. Assistant chief interviews for the water plant were conducted yesterday. I'm in the final stages of making a conditional offer. And then working through streets and utilities for their supervisor and utility worker. Of course, answer any questions you may have.
You bet. Council? Questions, comments? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item will be item 6, city council member reports, and we'll begin with Councilmember Hamby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to meet with the Boot Committee, beautifying our old town, to do just a small cleanup project on a Saturday, a sidewalk, gutter, and window cleanup on Main Street. Met with some volunteers at the senior center to look at a potential project to make the changes to the ramp on the side of the building that need to be made so that users of the senior citizen center can use that side entrance and utilize the shaded sitting area that's in between the two buildings there that everyone's really excited about. I had some ongoing conversations with the mayor regarding some hopes for 2019 and beyond, and looking forward to the State of the City address on Friday, and and what we have in store for us here in Brawley throughout this year. Had some ongoing conversations with some of the seniors that utilize the senior center regarding the ramp that I spoke about, and also necessary improvements to sidewalks throughout town. As a matter of fact, I see John Sample here tonight, and he's one of the residents that uses that center frequently, and also uses the sidewalks to get around. So he's one of the ones that has talked to me about some of the improvements that need to be made there. I was able to attend for a short period of time the Pioneer Day event out at the Pioneer Museum on Saturday. It's always a neat event and seems to bring out a lot of people that get to enjoy the offerings that they have out there. And that facility is pretty expansive. There's a lot of buildings and a lot of stuff to see there,
big area.
other than just the main museum building. I got to see my fellow council member Sam Couchman out there trying to brand the little kids. He was scaring them
You didn't get
with
any
it.
volunteers.
No.
You wouldn't even volunteer. I mean, I think that's, I don't know.
He wanted me to
He's trying
offer
to
up
brand.
some
Yeah.
body part for branding, but I wouldn't do it. So that's my report.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Hamby. Councilmember Couchman.
Okay. Basically, a couple things I wanted to bring up. One was, we had some discussion about truancy. I think we got some information from you regarding that. I would like to let us look a little bit more at that, maybe get some some information. I'd also like us to look at neighboring jurisdictions, specifically Coachella, Indio area. I believe there are some ordinances that they have in place as regards truancy. It might give our police more opportunity to approach some things in a different fashion. I don't know that we have a lot of time to spend on that from a police and enforcement aspect, but I do believe that it is an issue probably at the high school right now, and I think it's something that we can look at. I don't want us to spend a lot of time on it, but I also want us to look at where we could be more proactive with that, and just do some research, I think, is all that I'm really asking about. I did attend the League of City meeting that we had in El Centro. I thought that was a good meeting. If they would quit ringing the victory bell from El Centro's side. I know they're happy to win it once every 30 years or so, but I was really kind of forgiving because of that. But they only usually, maybe they win it once every 50 years, but I mean, that's okay. So they kept ringing that, but that was okay. I thought we did some good presentations there. I think Norma filled in and did a nice presentation on our bragging time. Also, I attended Pioneers Day as the blacksmithing shop, as we always do. I think we branded 240 pieces of wood for the children. I saw a lot of people out there. A lot of different people were there. It is an expansive thing at the museum, and if you get a chance to go out there and take a look at that during the Pioneer Days, you see a lot more than you do just simply within the museum. They bring out a lot of the machines, the older type machines. They showed you how the pioneers lived. They have some of the old Japanese movable housing that the Japanese used at the turn of the century here in Imperial Valley, and the farming operations, and then the blacksmithing, the old school houses, the train, the Holly Sugar sign. There are a variety of different things out there. There's a tank out there. There's a bunch of other things out there. So it was a really nice event all day long. It was a good event, though. And then also, I did a Boy Scout, Mr. Fiorenza came into the IID today requesting their support on a project that he's doing as an Eagle Scout on fencing out at the old ag station here as we go outside of Brawley. He wants to beautify that fencing area, and he wants to put a new gate on there and a couple of other things. So he's taken that on as an Eagle Scout project. And he was getting the IID support for that because part of it's, I think, rest in there right away where their poles are. But I did ask him and request that he come before the city council, state what he's planning to do. We might get some volunteers together to help with that effort, and we might also support that in a monetary fashion. It doesn't have to be, I think, a lot of money, but maybe something where we could do some donations to that effort out there. I think he would like to beautify that entry a little bit into Brawley and into that facility. There's a lot of things going on there, FFA and some other things out there. So I think that would be it's a good project for him to take on. So I did ask him to come and give a presentation here. I don't think he could make it tonight, but it'll probably be our next meeting. And then also, I did do a presentation to the Retired Teachers Association at the museum, presentation on World War II, and well-received, a large group of retired teachers that meet out there on a regular basis. And it was a really, really nice group, and they do a lot of things talking about retired teacher benefits and retired teacher issues that they might have here in Imperial County. They might be a good volunteer group to get involved in some of our City of Brawley projects. They do have time on their hands, and they also are involved in the community. I think still, some of them substitute teach, some of them do other things. With that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Couchman. Councilmember Nava.
Oh, thank you. So I'll keep it super brief. IVDC, as a board, I've also joined a marketing committee within IVDC, so I'll bring some concepts back and some reporting back on what is taking place with IVDC. As part of ICTC on behalf of the city, I've been serving on that board for a few years now, and Brawley has not had representation in the vice chair capacity or the chairman capacity, and I was nominated for that and successful with that. So I'll be the vice chair for this year, and that puts us in a stronger position to have a stronger voice. So that's a real benefit for the city.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, and I look forward to next year. If I'm able to serve as a chair, I think that'll put us in a strong position because there is some discussion about forming a local association of government, so that would put us in a pretty strong spot as well. Also attended the League of Cities. That was fun, a little packed and a little tight, but it was still it was fun, you know. And so
your tortillas were done well.
Yeah, no, and then I was introduced by Councilmember Couchman, so that was always a good thing too. But hope everybody's enjoying life. I've, as you know, I started my business here recently. I opened a location here, and it's been going well. So, working a lot of hours, and hopefully that translates into some good things here soon. So, anyway, thank you all very much.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Nava, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Howdy.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I had also attended, I think all of us were able to attend the chamber mixer at the U.S. Fitness. That was very well attended. They provided us with a nice tour, and it was a good networking opportunity. Also attended the League of Cities dinner, and I presented the brag time for Brawley since our mayor was not available that day, and I think I covered just about everything that was going on in Brawley, and so that went off really well. And I attended the regular monthly meeting for the Brawley Chamber, and just a little bit of highlights on what's happening with the Brawley Chamber. Of course, they're scheduling that big event, and our mayor will be covering that, I'm sure. And they just report every month on what's happening with the members with the chamber, and they add some and they lose some, but in general, it's a a real good representation of our community on the chamber. They are wanting to fill some of the board seats. I think the terms are up for several of their board members. So if there's anybody out there in the community that's interested in serving on the Brawley Chamber, please give Katie a call or call the one of the girls that works there for her. They're very interested in getting some people on board. I think their term is 2 years, a 2-year term. So, and let's see, in addition to that, I did address some concerns from citizens, mostly code violations throughout the city. I reported those concerns to our city manager, and happy to report that those are addressed real promptly. So I want to thank Rosanna and the staff for taking care, and our police department for taking care of those issues right away.
So
I
you
did-
you did move your cars in, Sam? Good. Good.
Off the
And
off
I'm
the
not
front
selling
yard.
any in the
Off
front
the
yard
front
either.
yard. Anyway, it wasn't Sam.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't.
That's what he said too. He goes, "It wasn't me." Yeah, right.
Wanda.
I did, I did receive some interest from a group that are very interested in working on the tennis courts at Reserve Park. And I understand that they met with Miguel, our Parks and Recreation staff, and a few other staff. So I'm going to be following up and see how we can assist with that. But there's a group of people that are very interested in redoing those tennis courts out here at Reserve Park. So that's good. And that's about it. Thank you.
Very
Thank you much.
good, Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the backup pinch hitting also for brag time at League. I was absent that evening. I did attend the orientation for the IVROP Dancing with the Stars. I think I announced that last time, but I regretfully had to step down. I'm not going to be able to actually attend that night, so I'm kind of bummed, but I wanted to say that publicly. Such a great cause, and actually the orientation that much more. How much what that event can do, not just for the personal experience, but certainly representing a city like Brawley would have been a great honor. So hopefully my name stays in the hat. With a little better planning, I had a work issue that was going to disallow me. So bummer there.
Maybe
But
when
we'll.
they realized you were going to pop and lock for your dance.
I threw that out.
Yeah, yeah, they
That
were
wasn't
like, "No, you
one of the choices, but I was going to weave it into the salsa somehow. Yeah. So, moving on, just a few of the events I did attend. I did attend the Holtville Rib Cook-Off, always a wonderful event, and obviously to get there and help support our one of our sister cities down there with Holtville was again well attended. Also, much preparations, and I do want to thank all those that are involved, and in particular, Councilmember Nava has been putting in time and helping with some of the work, as he stated he would, with the State of the City address. So look forward to a very Class A presentation there, thanks to your creativity and your help, so thank you for that. I've also attended a couple times now the ad hoc committee that was put together by the county, and I just want to report that out. Ad hoc committee for 5150, which is really a complete systems approach and look in the county. We're not the only county where that is, it tends to be a strained and a tough issue for all public safety, all stakeholders, all really government providers that have a share in that. So it's a very challenging position, but I look forward, and I was actually selected partially because of geography, being up here in the north end, and also my position here, obviously with council. So as we make progress, I would like to report out just a little bit on that, because again, this is something that affects all our communities. Our role is to liaise with key stakeholders within the county and help kind of bridge those not only communications, but really hopefully walk away with some meaningful shared vision there of what we can do together with multiple agencies. So more to come on that. I did cycle my butt off at the IV Velo Club annual U-Haul ride, which is a 70-mile ride. I elected to do the long one. I don't know why, because it's been about a month since I went on a long ride, but there were parts of the body that were not, again, conditioned for that, but I made it, and but it was a great cause. Again, we raised all the funds were directed to the Cancer Resource Center. So again, great event, enjoyable, and a great cause. And I do believe, I think I'm the only council member that was actually riding, so I'm trying to,
Yes, you were.
represent well.
Yes, you
know,
were. If I rode
can,
70 miles, I wouldn't.
Thank you for representing.
There you go. I was there for that.
Sam
You have
doesn't
to get
even
up early.
like, Sam doesn't even like to drive 70 miles.
I'm not even going to drive, so yeah.
Well, I was
you're
thinking
right.
I'll do the shorter one with the little, where you pull the kid behind, so
That's
Sam
a
can
cool,
join
that's
in,
cool. I
sit
can
back
get in
there,
a little cart and ride with him. yeah.
pull
I
you
think
for
that's
a couple
great.
blocks at least, and
Sure.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, I've lost weight.
That's good. I had an honor, again, that was unexpectedly bestowed upon me. I did attend a dinner at the Stockman's Club for the annual, it was actually the 9th annual Justin Lofton tournament that usually ends there in a dinner with prizes and kind of acknowledging those that, how they did it, first, second, third place at the tournament. And there was an award called the Hard Charger Award, typically directed at those that serve the public. And they started reading this bio, and it started off with some years of service with the Sheriff's Department. I thought, that's interesting. Who's here from the Sheriff's Department? I'm looking around, and they kept going aviation. I'm going, whoever this is, I like this guy. We have a lot in common. I absolutely had no clue, so it was very cool. And I was honored that evening with the Hard Charger Award from the Justin Lofton Foundation. So proudly presenting that. Outside of that, thank you to Parks and Rec for the heaters at the pool. I know I'm saying that on behalf of all the users. Works really well. Thank you, Miguel, Linda, all those, obviously, that were kind of the muscle behind that project, and of course, Guillermo, So I expect to see you there, too, in the near future. And outside that, I think we mentioned all the other events. So thank you to council for continuing. I know we divide and conquer, and I'm very much look forward and hoping not just staff and the members of the public are able to attend the State of the City address. I will do my level best in the few amounts of words to really outline, I think, the shared vision and the goals of this council looking ahead, as well as some of the milestones we accomplished over the past year. Again, none of this happens on its own or with an individual. It's very much a group and team effort. So. Councilmember.
One thing I neglected to mention was I did go to the county board and present a key to the city and on behalf of Abe Seabolt's, to Abe Seabolt's family, on behalf of the city, for his service to the city a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago. And so I think that was well received, and it was a great honor for me to be able to do that.
Sam, thank you for that. I appreciate that, and well worth mentioning. And needless to say, he sat in the seat for many years and served this community, not just Brawley, but obviously the county. So again, thank you for that. Without any further comments, I appreciate that. We'll move on to our next item, which is item 7, City Manager's Report.
Nothing further to report this evening.
Thank you. Item 8, City Attorney's Report.
Same for a closed session.
Looks like we have plenty there. Thank you.
Did he have an exciting day, though?
It was exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Ask him
It
about
was
his
exciting.
day.
Yeah, well,
I only lost my temper a little.
Okay. Doing pretty good. Excellent. Don't stir the pot.
I know, right?
Item 9, City Clerk's Report.
I don't.
Nothing to report? Oh, go ahead.
April 17th, I think, will be the Employees Appreciation Luncheon.
Look forward to that. Very good.
Okay.
That's after tax day, so could be in a good or bad mood, but.
Yeah.
Very good. That'll bring us to item 10, closed session. I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. We'll take a brief break before we convene in closed session. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Yeah.